So thank you all of you who are here. And the intention of this webinar is to lay out some principles to guide you in teaching from home. But it's going to look different for everyone, and you're going to have different expectations depending on your school and your district. So keep that in mind that you'll need to adjust things for your students. So the first thing I want to share with you is this website, and I will be showing this to you at the end of the session as well. And this is bit.ly/teachhomehub. And on this website, we have all of the resources that you're going to see here today, and the 5 principles. So at the end of this presentation, I'll give you a little tour of that website as well, but everything will be there. So before we get into the 5 principles, I first want to start with these 3 important principles just for helping children succeed in general. So we don't have control over our students' home environment the way we can control the classroom environment, but we do know that these 3 things, a sense of autonomy, competence, and relatedness, are really important in helping children succeed. And these are also more challenging because we're now trying to do this from a distance. So to go over these really quickly, autonomy is a sense of independence and choice and giving students control in their learning. So any way that we can give students some kind of choice and freedom and independence is going to help motivate them to want to participate. And the second one is competence. So this is that students need to believe that they can be successful. So engaging them in activities that they know they can accomplish. If it's too much work, if it's too challenging, they're not going to feel capable. And there's probably also new stresses in their house, and that's going to add to that kind of anxiety. So we want to make sure that it's something they feel capable of doing, and we might need to support them along the way. And the third one is relatedness. This is more important than ever. This is a sense of belonging. So students need to know that they are important members of your classroom community. They need to know that you as a teacher like them and value them. And we can't motivate students through grades or just forcing them to comply or just being in the same room with them. So what we can do is reach out to them and show them that we care about them and we're supporting them. So this is really important right now. So keep those things in mind as we move into these 5 key principles for distance learning. And I'm going to kind of go over these in general, and then we'll go through them in a little more depth. But you can see that the first 2 here, connect with students and connect students with each other. These are that relatedness concept. And so these are really important. That's, I think, the most important thing that we're doing right now. We don't know what our student situation is at home, but we do know that it's probably different than it was just a few weeks ago. So parents might be working from home and trying to manage that and manage having their children learn at home. Or parents might not be working, and that's a huge stress on families. So we know that things are different, and we have to adjust with that. Our students are going to need those positive relationships. So any way we can build routine, connect with them, build relationship, that is going to be the most important thing in making sure our kids are having positive experiences. So I am going to go through each of these 5 principles in a little more detail. And again, if you have questions, use that chat function so Eric can answer your questions, or maybe you guys can answer each other's questions too. And then at the end, I will show you all of these resources, how to contact us. So the first principle is to connect with students, and this is the most important. And you want to try to connect with each individual student, because we can't connect with our students in the usual ways. So just saying hi to them or acknowledging them in your classroom, you have to very deliberately do that now. And some things that can be obvious to us, like I think it's obvious to us that we care about our students, we're thinking about them, that's not necessarily obvious to all of our students. So some might really need that personal connection and for you to reach out to them. So on the slide, you can see a few different ways that you can do that. First way might be a live video meeting like we're doing here. So using Zoom, using Google Meet, or if you have Schoology Enterprise, using the Schoology Conferences app that's built in there, are ways that you can see and communicate with your students face to face. And that two-way communication is better than the one-way, just the teacher sharing out. But any form of communication is going to be really meaningful. So using something like messaging apps, so messaging through your LMS, Google Classroom, Schoology, connecting with students that way. If you use Seesaw, Class Dojo, Remind, those are all great ways you can communicate with your students. And maybe just an email or maybe a phone call. So some of your students, if they're not connecting with you, that phone call home might really make a difference. And then social media. I know a lot of teachers have a social media presence already for their families and classroom and sharing things. So that would also be a great way to continue to connect with your students. The second principle is to connect students with each other. So after you've connected with your students, think about ways that you can connect your students with each other. So again, this could be a live video meeting, and this could be discussing something academic, or maybe just discussing something that they're doing, having a fun conversation. Your students are isolated just like we are, and they haven't seen their friends, they haven't seen people their age maybe, so it's good for them to be able to have that opportunity to connect. And then doing something like a digital discussion can be a great way to connect your students, and it doesn't have to be this live, we're all together at the same date and time. So any LMS will have a discussion function, so Schoology, Canvas, Google Classroom. In Google Classroom, that's called a question. And all of the students can share their responses, they can all see each other's responses, they can reply back to each other, so they can have their own conversation. And then recording and sharing videos are a great way to connect students with each other. So using a screencasting program like Screencastify or Loom, students can create videos of themselves, of their screens, and share that in the LMS. Or Flipgrid, the students can create videos and those are shared with each other. And as a teacher, you can even allow students to create video responses as well. So a great way for them to be able to communicate with each other, but it doesn't all have to be at the same date, same time. And then even shared documents. So if you have Google Docs, Google Slides, students can collaborate on those together. That can be academic collaboration. So they're still having that connection with their peers. Okay, the third principle is to establish consistent routines. So your learning management system, so if that's Google Classroom or Schoology for many of you, this is now your classroom. So this is your home base for everything. So we need to think about how will you organize your materials? How will that be accessible to students so it makes sense to them, they can find what they're looking for? How will students connect with each other? And how will students share materials back with you? So how might they share work or turn in work with you? And even if you don't have an LMS, you still want to have some kind of home base for the way you're communicating with students. So maybe that's even an email. You can send an email out to your students and they reply back to you. Use the tools that you already have available to you, things you are already using. Other things to think about are what your school is using as a whole. So developing a consistent system is going to be important. We don't want to confuse families if one of their kids has this system and one of their kids is communicating this way. So having everyone on the same LMS or doing things in a similar way is going to help from this being too overwhelming or frustrating for families. Also think about, especially for secondary teachers, that not all of their classes are posting all of their work on the same day or expecting all of it to be due on the same day, so that that doesn't become overwhelming or difficult for people to manage. But being consistent and developing a routine is really helpful so that everyone knows what is expected of them. And one way to help with that planning, this 5E's lesson plan template, this is linked on the website that I'm going to show you. This is one way you could think about framing lessons in this distance learning environment. So the 5E's stand for engage, explore, explain, elaborate, evaluate. And so that starts with just kind of a bigger engaging students in some ideas, maybe asking them some questions about what they think. And then that moves into maybe students exploring things on their own. Maybe you give them some videos to watch or some articles to read or have some discussions amongst themselves. And then that might go into explain, where you are actually teaching a lesson and providing supports for students. And then that might move into students elaborating. So they're taking what they're learning and they're making connections to other ideas or solving real world problems. And maybe finally having some kind of assessment, but that doesn't have to be this traditional paper pencil assessment. Maybe the students make a video reflection or they complete some kind of exit ticket. So that's one idea. Even simpler, doing something like read something, write something, say something, where students are reading, writing, and talking about whatever they're learning. Or a gradual release format where maybe as a teacher, you model it in a video, and then you give students a collaborative activity where they're working on that together, and then maybe students complete it on their own. So think about some different formats or routines that you can develop for your students. Sorry, I went too far. Okay. So the third concept is to establish consistent routines and continuing thinking about all 5 days of the week. This is one way, a secondary example that you might use to present your lessons to students and plan things out. And so this would be having one big lesson for the week, and then you might need to modify this. Maybe you do one every couple of days. But you could start with Monday just connecting with your students, and your students know that always on Monday you're going to have a live video chat or you're going to have this discussion board open. And then maybe on Tuesdays is when you create an instructional video, and that instructional video is released for your students, and they're actually going to be doing more of the direct learning that concept. And maybe you would host virtual office hours where you have a set time where students maybe come into a video meeting or they're participating in a discussion that you're there to help them live. And then maybe you have a collaboration day where students are working together. Maybe they're posting in a discussion or working on a shared document. And maybe then they're going to give each other feedback and view each other's work, and having their classmates be an audience for the work that they're creating. And then maybe you have an independent learning day. If you have an online learning program that you use, maybe for math practice or reading, that would be a good day for that as well, or an opportunity for you to check in on individual students. Another way to think about structuring your class for an elementary class would be having a different subject every day. So every day, the students might know that they're going to have a reading task or a writing task. Or maybe you lay them all out at the beginning of the week and students have some flexibility on what they're going to do each day. But realize that students aren't going to focus on 6 hours of learning like they would in a normal school day. It's going to be much less time. So that's maybe about 20 minutes a day for a kindergarten student, 75 minutes a day for upper elementary students, and up to 2 hours a day for high school students. So we have to kind of be flexible with that. So the fourth concept here is to focus on engaging activities. And I would start this with providing direct instruction in a short video. And different ways you can do this. The first three things you see here on the screen are screencasting apps that allow you to create a video recording your screen or recording yourself. So Screencastify, Loom, and Screencast-O-Matic are all free. Great ways to be able to create a video and share that out with your students. And then Flipgrid is a tool where you and your students can create short videos and they're shared together with the class. So that's a great way to be able to communicate and share in video, maybe providing students some choice. And but it's asynchronous, so we don't all have to be doing it at the same time. Students can do it on their own time to create their video and share that out with the class. And then Edpuzzle is a tool where you can take any video, so that can be a YouTube video, it can be a video that you created, and embed questions into the video. So students will watch, the video will pause, they'll answer the question, and they have to answer the question before they can move forward in the video. So that's great for you to keep track of how students are doing, if they're understanding the concept, and how much of the video that students watched. So that's also a really great tool to try out if you're going to have videos. The second thing I would do in focusing on engaging activities is to build problem-based or project-based learning activities. And I've shared some resources here you can see on this slide, but these are also on the website. All these things are linked. And a little bit about these. So for math, a few resources are Emergent Math. These are problem-based curriculum maps for grades 3 through 11, and involve solving real-world problems. So there's some application. Oops. And the intensity of chocolate milk example there, that's an example. That's students create a poster showing the different intensity of chocolate milk depending on how much chocolate's in it, using ratios and proportional reasoning. So there's just kind of some real world application and can be some fun activities for kids. And then Would You Rather Math is K-12 either or questions that are presented to students, and they have to choose between the two options and explain their choice. And there's not necessarily a right or wrong answer, but students have to figure out how they're going to apply math to solve that problem and defend their choice. So you can see here, Cheez-Its, which Cheez-It scenario would they choose, and they have to use math. And then we have some STEM projects listed there. Those are from Leading PBL. There's K-12 project ideas. Mrs. O's house activity has tons of different activities. 50 ideas for PBL, that comes from teachthought.com. And there are tons of ideas, or 50 ideas in there. And High Tech High student projects, those are K-12 projects, so not just high school and not just tech. So those are all great places to get some ideas for engaging students in more real world problem and project-based learning. And even if you don't do this big PBL unit, it gives you some ideas to build from for your students. And the next thing in engaging activities is to then build student collaboration and conversation, so that students aren't just creating something to give to you as a teacher, that their class is involved in it. And that's going to be more motivating for students and meaningful. So encouraging students to collaborate around projects, using your LMS for digital discussions, to share what they're doing. So if you use a discussion in your LMS, it doesn't just have to be for a discussion. It is a great place for students to share what they've done. So they can attach links and documents and pictures and videos, and that way there's an audience that everyone can see that. They can use that to work together and collaborate on things, along with shared documents like shared Google Docs and Google Slides. They can collaborate in real time together. And that can also help with accountability for maybe some students who are less motivated. If they know their classmates saying, hey, we're going to work on this together, they might be a little more engaged in it. And then Flipgrid is, again, a great way to have students communicating back and forth to each other through video. And Seesaw. So Seesaw is a great program for students of all ages, so especially elementary, lower elementary. Students can share pictures, videos, they can share the work that they've done, and teachers can allow students to comment on that as well, so they can get feedback from their classmates, and that's a great way to stay connected and have students collaborating together. So the fifth principle, final principle, is less is more. And so I would first think about this less is more idea from a content perspective. You can't teach everything that you are going to teach. So you need to think about what are the most important concepts that you want students to learn. One engaging activity is going to be much more meaningful than a lot of less engaging activities. And those lots of little activities can also feel really overwhelming for students and for families. So try to focus on fewer but bigger things. Encourage higher order thinking. You want students to make connections. Maybe they'll apply what they're learning to the real world or to another subject area, rather than just having tasks that are right or wrong answers. Also realize that your students can Google anything, and they will Google anything. So you don't want to give them tasks that are just Googleable. Give them things to do, problems to solve. And also think about less is more as far as the technology tools that you're using. Start with using what you're already familiar with. So if you're already using Google Classroom, that's your new classroom, that's your home, and use all of those tools you can in Google Classroom, link everything there so that that becomes your home base. And maybe if you want to try using something new, you can, if you feel comfortable with that, but don't feel like you have to do all of these new things, especially with the things that I'm sharing today. If that's overwhelming, it's all of these new things. Stick with what you're already doing. If that's very simple, that's okay. Remember, it's what's most important is that you're connecting with your students. And again, try to be consistent with what your school and district is doing so that you're all on the same program or same format, so that that's easy for families to manage. And then find ways to encourage creativity. So having students use what's around them to support their learning at home, making things personal to students and applicable to them, that's going to be motivating, and it's going to be less stressful for everyone as well. So the last part here that I'm going to share with you is just how to get support and walk you through the website of resources that we have. So myself and my colleagues are available Monday through Friday. One of us is the virtual coach for the day. And so if you haven't used our virtual coaching, this is a video chat program where you can go to that virtual coaching link from 8 to 4, Monday through Friday. And one of us will be on the other end, and we can answer your questions, share your screen, or we can share our screen with you to help you with any of these things. You can also email us and call or text at that number. And someone mentioned this yesterday, the virtual coaching is free. So there's not like a catch or something. So go ahead and try that out. I'm going to click over to the website. So this bit.ly/teachhomehub. This is where all of the resources are. So here you can see the 5 remote learning principles. So if you go to any of these pages, you'll see some of that same content from the presentation with a little more explanation and links here as well. So we have that divided out for each of these 5 principles. And also we have a links and resources page. So here we have some databases, our Tech Tools database on our website, some tools for distance learning. We have a list of free resources, all of the many companies that are offering free subscriptions to teachers right now, those are listed here. And then we have some more links for problem-based, project-based learning, some different lesson ideas, templates that you can use. And then this connect with a coach button will take you to our virtual coaching. So you can access virtual coaching here from the website. And I'm going to go back here to the home page. On our home page, you'll see this is where you can watch the video recording of this presentation. So this will be up here later today. And then we've also added 2 more sessions for next week. So if you have colleagues who you think would benefit from this, who might want to join in, we've added Tuesday and Wednesday next week. So you can, the links to sign up are here on this website. So you can take advantage of that. Okay, I'm gonna check the chat here and see if there are any questions that you guys have for me. Looks like you're getting questions answered. That's the end of the content that I have for you guys. So I'm gonna stop recording. Feel free to stay here in the meeting to ask any questions that you might have.